All right, hope you like the new segment. Now it is time for one of my favorites and one of your least favorites. Caleb Holds Up the Mirror, where we criticize our own side for a little bit. We take a break from dunking on the left and point out the retards on our own team. Josh Hawley, the Republican senator, MAGA Republican senator, by the way, from Missouri, has announced he is co-sponsoring a bill with Bernie Sanders to cap credit card interest at 10%. Now, you're probably like, wait a second, this sounds familiar. That's because I covered it when Donald Trump said he wanted to do it. So they want to cap credit card interest at 10%. I have made it clear how I feel about this. I'm a free market guy. I think this is an incredibly bad idea that will have long-lasting implications on our economy, and they won't be good for folks like you and I. Now, there's a couple different things we have to consider here. Let's break down let's break down what would happen to people who currently hold a credit card. If you currently hold a credit card, let's talk about what is a credit card, right? A credit card is a line of credit that is unsecured that your bank grants you. They're saying, we trust you to pay this off and not take out a bunch of money. And they give you, a high interest rate, like anywhere between 20 to 30% for that credit card because it's unsecured. Now, they can come after you for the money, but they'd have to sell you to collections or sue you and have to pay the legal fees. And it would be a whole hassle, and they probably wouldn't get a whole lot back out of it when they consider the overhead. So they're giving you, it's a bond of trust between the consumer and the institution where the bank gives you a credit card without a car or a house or anything to back the loan up, that they can no physical asset that they can come and seize from you, and says, okay, we trust that you're going to pay this back, but if you take this loan out, it's going to be at a higher interest rate. That's how it works. Now, credit cards make up for about 10 to 25% of total revenue for banks in the United States every year. That's on average. If we all of a sudden say, okay, no more credit card interest beyond 10%. Well, the bank has to, number one, account for that when it assumes the risk of different clients when they give these loans out. And number two, make that money up somewhere else. The banks are not just going to go, well, I guess I lose 10 to 25% of my interest. I'm SOL, or excuse me, of my income. I'm SOL. I don't know what to do. I guess we'll just have to be 25% less profitable this year. There's nothing I can do. That's not how businesses work, specifically not banks. That money's going to get made up one way or another, whether it be increased interest rates elsewhere, like mortgages, enjoy a 10% rate on a $300,000 house, car loans, home equity lines of credit, the list goes on and on. It's also going to be made up in fees. So those of you that bitch about overdraft fees and different junk fees at ATMs and through your bank, those are going to get raised as well. Another way that they could come up with that money, because whenever you swipe your card, right, the bank gets a portion of that money from the store that the purchase was made at. That's why you'll see places that only take cash. So one of the things they're going to do is they'll increase the fees for businesses. So now when you go to Walmart or Target or whatever, there'll be another 2 or 3% on that fee to make up for the lost income from the interest cuts. So now prices are going to go up. So people that are bitching about grocery prices, hope you're ready to deal with that. It's just not a good thing to do, right? It's not a good thing to do. They're also going to be more selective with whom they lend these credit cards out to in the first place. Those of you that already have credit cards, if you don't have a 750 score or higher, there's a good chance you get most, if not all, of your cards dropped. And then it becomes even harder to build credit with a credit card. That's how I started building credit. Was I got a $300 credit card when I was 19 years old, and I would just get it, and I'd make payments on it and pay it off. It wasn't ideal. I had to pay a little bit more in interest, but I built credit. Now I'm able to buy a house before my 30th birthday, which is unheard of in this economy, right? So the days of building credit with low risk credit cards that you can't run up very high, over, because they're not going to give these credit cards out to 19-year-old kids anymore. That's done. Now, some of these 19-year-old kids are retarded with it, and I agree that is predatory lending when they go post up at these colleges and try to get them credit cards, but that's a story for another time. So it's going to be difficult for you to build credit. It's going to be difficult for you to keep your credit cards that you already have. By the way, your score drops when they close these accounts as well. So if you're at like 720 right now and the banks close 5 of your credit cards out, well, expect to be at like 660, 670, right? So again, talk about credit score. We did it on the Wednesday show. Go listen to that. We talked about the importance of credit scores and why I agree it's not perfect. It's better than the way the system used to function. Key hint there, racism was involved prior to credit scores. So the banks are going to say, we're not going to give this guy with a 680 credit score a credit card with a 10% interest rate on it. No way, no how, because the risk doesn't outweigh, or excuse me, because the risk outweighs the reward. No thanks. We're just going to close the account. And here's what you guys got to realize is, yes, there are people that are stupid with credit cards, and there are people that get into bad situations because of credit cards. I'm not going to sit here and deny that. But there are people that use credit cards as a supplement to a savings account. Not for shopping sprees, not for vacations, not for restaurants or nights out at the bar, but as a supplement to us. That's what we have ours for. That's what we have ours for. How many of you guys listening to this right now, say the tranny blew out in your car or your water heater broke, how many of you guys could come up with $5,000 like that? Any of you? Could any of you come up with that much money to fix a major world-stopping problem that needs to be addressed right now out of your savings account without totally draining it? Probably not. So yes, while credit cards can get you into bad situations and they can be predatory, they absolutely serve their purpose. Well, I hate to break it to you, but if we cap credit card interest rates at 10%, those problems aren't just going to magically disappear with the credit card interest, right? Your water heater is still going to break. The transmission on your car is still going to go out. You're still going to blow tires out. Well, whatever the case may be, emergencies are still going to pop up that require you to have access to funds right away. So when those emergencies continue to pop up, what you're going to see is people are going to go to more alternative methods of lending, right? Different ways to make money or to come up with that money that they maybe don't have in their savings account. Those lending methods include, but are not limited to, pawn shops. Well, that's a fun one. Payday loan centers, which some of you are trying to ban. 401k and IRA loans. Horrible idea. Don't borrow against your retirement. If you have any equity in your home, they could go towards a home equity line of credit. But let's be real. If you're relying on a credit card, you probably don't have that because most people would go to that first. Or my personal favorite, loan sharks. Let's go find Jimmy the Fish and get $2,500 from him to where I'm going to eventually, the payments are going to amount up to $7,500. You're also going to see reduced rewards. So those of you that like credit card rewards, that like myself, I got the Costco credit card. It pays for my membership and usually gives me a couple $100 at the end of the year on top of that. But for those of you that like credit card rewards, you like to get the little 5% back on your gas. Bye-bye. Say goodbye to that. Those days are over. You're not going to do that. And guess what's going to happen? There's not going to be any reason for you to use that card. You're also going to see a cutback in consumer spending. Yeah, that's right. Believe it or not. And I'm not saying it's a good thing, but that's the reality, is this economy does depend on people to some degree purchasing things on credit cards. Not always a good thing, but that's the reality. If you want to see an economic downturn that's going to result in job loss, layoffs, you name it, well, prices going up. Well, that's what's going to happen if we cap credit card rate. You're also going to see credit rationing, which kind of plays into what I said at first about them being more selective with who they lend these cards out to in the first place. It's not just going to stop at credit cards, though. It's not just going to stop at credit cards. The banks are going to be more selective with every loan because now they need to be able to offset the risk. They're going to be, so mortgages, car loans, it's going to be even harder for you guys to get these. So while I agree that credit cards can be predatory and they can be problematic from a financial standpoint, we have the Costco credit card. I'll break down because I'm a guy who comes from a lot of credit card debt. 4 or 5 years ago, I was close to 20 grand in credit card debt, and I climbed my way out of it. It was not easy. It was not fun. I had to make a lot of sacrifices, but we're credit card. Well, we got one that we carry a balance on and pay off, but other than that, we're credit card free, credit card debt free. It was not fun. Would not recommend you getting into that debt. And some of it was emergencies and some of it was me being a dumbass. But the reality is, this is my take on credit cards, right? So I have one card that I use for gas, right? I'll put gas on it and then I'll just put the cash in the bank and pay the gas off. And then I'll use it when we go to the grocery store. And it's the same thing there. Everything else, I pay cash. I pay cash because I spend substantially less money. I would recommend you guys do the same. And I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that, but this is just common sense shit. When I started just taking money out and saying, this is what I have to spend for the month, when this is gone, it's gone. I don't get any more because it's easy with a credit card to go $20, $30, $40 over budget every month. And then that shit starts to add up, especially with interest rates. This is my money for the month. When it's gone, it's gone. You'll find that you know what else you'll find? Not only are you spending less money, you'll find that you lose weight because you eat out less, you drink less. The list goes on and on. But I think that capping credit card rates, here's what I'll say. I'll end the segment on this. Capping credit card rates is very destructive for the reasons I just went over. If you are a conservative, which most of you are who listen to this show, but if you are a conservative, Republican, libertarian type that's listening to this show and you find yourself falling on the economic side of Bernie Sanders, perhaps it is time for you to take a step back and reevaluate your stance. Say, how am I on this guy's side? Like, you ever watch the movie American History X? When Edward Norton, his Nazi character, is going on a rant screaming about people. You ever find yourself agreeing with some of the stuff he's saying on there and you have to take a step back and go, wait a second. Am I wrong on this? At least reevaluate what you're saying, right? And that's another, I'm not saying everything he said was wrong. Certainly not everything he said was right, but that's a discussion for another time. All I'll say is if you're on the side of Bernie Sanders on an economic issue like this, perhaps it is time to take a step back and reevaluate. I think we are going to be at a crossroads, the Republican Party is. We are heading down a dangerous path where this sense of economic populism, while at the surface it might be a popular thing that wins you votes, specifically in the Rust Belt and the Midwest, we have to ask, what's the long-term effect of this? Are we free market capitalists, or are we going to trend towards socialism? Right now, I have a deep-rooted concern that the Republican Party is trending toward that more socialistic economy style. I don't like that. I don't think that's good. Guys, that's been tried all over the world time and time again, and it's never worked. Don't throw Denmark and Sweden and all those countries at me. We pay for a bunch of their shit. You're finding that out in USAID. We also pay for their military. It's a little bit easier, when you get to do that. They also have about 1/10 of our population size, so that's another thing to consider. So I don't even want to hear about those countries, and their taxes are insane. Taxes are insane, and when you start to look into those countries a little bit deeper, you find out that it ain't all sunshine and fucking rainbows over there either. So they certainly have their downsides. But it's an economic system that has been tried all over the world. It's never worked. Let's not flirt with that idea. That is a very dangerous game. Very dangerous game. Because, like I said, this ain't going to be the Trump ball washing hour every show here. We're going to criticize things that he's done, things that he said, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this, I'm not particularly blaming Trump for this trend towards socialism. I think he's played a role in it. I don't think Trump himself is a socialist, but I think his brand of populism has maybe made some conservatives a little bit, without even knowing, a little bit more sympathetic to the socialist economic worldview. So I would just monitor yourselves. Find out, hey, am I agreeing with Bernie Sanders on this? Maybe this isn't such a good idea. Maybe I should reevaluate where I stand on this issue here. That's all I got. Stay tuned for trending this week. We got a whole bunch more stuff coming up.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to click the link in the description to get the full episode on Rumble. If you prefer to listen along, you can actually get us on Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also go to www.outlawstreamers.com to learn more about not just my show, but tons of other great shows and all the exciting projects they have coming up. Follow my socials at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram, at Caleb Salvatore Comedy on the Chinese spy app that is TikTok, and be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks, and we'll see you every Saturday for brand new episodes of That's Based. Peace.